whenever I clean, I want to have some kind of like trashy TV on as I'm getting my stuff done. And I've been languishing a bit lately. I don't have, there was no inspiration, but a listener just posted about this and I had to check it out. Have either of you ever seen Floribama Shore?
Oh.
No.
Fuck no.
Is it like Jersey Shore, but the Florida-Bama Shore?
It is exactly that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Dang.
The panhandle of Florida, you know, where Panama City Beach is, where I won't, let's not say anything illegal we've done before, but
it's a good rule.
Yeah.
I've
been there.
I've been there and I've done things.
And
Right.
it is, so it's the Florida Panhandle, right where like Alabama and Northwest Florida meet. And it's this like total party area. And in the summer, apparently, just like up in the Northeast with Jersey Shore, all of these like full on Southerners go wild out for the summer there. I am loving this show. Whichever listener posted about this the other day, like I owe you a Coca-Cola or something like this.
A Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
It sounds to me like you owe them a rosé.
See, this is the Southern culture from the show rubbing off on me. It's like, it's all soda, right? It's
pop.
Sweet things.
You give soda pop. It's pop, right?
Is that what they call it there?
I don't know. Hospitality for sure.
I thought in the South they called every soda Coke.
Oh, I don't know.
Where I'm from in Wisconsin, it was always pop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm from California.
Anyway, highly recommend this show. Either of you need that, like that sort of fix with TV that's obviously a little lowbrow?
I don't, and it's not because I can't get down with it. It's because I know myself, and what will happen is that I will be Instacarting Cheeto Puffs and like veggie buffalo wings and vats of ranch to my front door, and then I'll just be like living on the couch getting fully involved. It doesn't like trash TV for me isn't a thing that I want in the background. It's a thing that I'm just like fully involved in, and it's like 100% a self-control thing. I can't do it because I need to not, like, my mental health needs to not.
I crushed 4.5 hour long episodes yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't feel good about myself.
I mean,
no judgment to yourself. Be graceful. You need what you need. You know?
This is, you gotta rest. You gotta like fill your cup and shit.
Yeah. Well, how about we get the show started so I can start up on Florida-Bama.
Can we get this show over with? Because I'm trying to go back to Florida-Bama.
I'm fiending for it. Yeah. What's gonna happen next?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Go to Florida-Bama.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Shannon.
And hey, I'm Niki.
We know you, Niki. We, of course, our friend Niki is here today. Niki, you are a longtime human rights advocate. I don't know how else you want to be introduced on this episode, but that's usually just more or less how I think of you.
Oh yeah, that works.
Great.
Roll with a few organizations, but here for humans. Yeah.
Well, you have centrally, I think, in the fight for the rights of our unhoused community in the region, you've been a very strong voice, a very clear-eyed speaker on these issues, and really painting things for our officials and other people in our region, letting them actually see what is going on, who is in fact being put upon, and I've always really appreciated that about you. So the reason we asked you to come on today is because there has been a rash of Sacramento County Park Rangers terrorizing folks effectively in various camps throughout the county. And, you know, this is a thing that never stops, but it's always, I think, really important that when we do see it, we raise it up. We try and raise the voices of the folks who are actually being harmed as fast as we can. So most recently, the last couple days, there is a camp called the Island that is over by, I guess we'd say over by the Sacramento River, north of the central city. And then the last few days, Rangers have been coming down there, Sacramento County Park Rangers, and bothering them, trying to take their things from them. But this comes in within the context of something larger. There was another camp called Ground Zero out in Rio Linda that was just totally razed, right? Totally bulldozed a little while ago. So can you just take us back and talk to us a little bit about where this sort of county terror against our unhoused community, where this is kind of coming from in the recent weeks and months?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, just appreciate both of you so much and the work you do and the kind things you said. And certainly, been working with the Sacramento Homeless Organizing Committee for quite a long time to try to uplift these experiences, people's perspectives, voices, literally get them in the room when people are talking about them and making these decisions about their lives. And so, we saw a slight reprieve during COVID from quite a lot of these sweeps, whether it's law enforcement, they still did it, but it was just scaled back. So it's sort of a status quo policy that they will move people around based on complaints, based on their own observations. It's their status quo policy, both the county and the city, for years and years and years. The Park Rangers Department has even posted for years how many encampments they take down. It's on their monthly, it's an update they do on their website. So that number drastically reduced during COVID, didn't disappear entirely, and they're picking back up again since we reopened and the health order has been lifted. It's important to note that the CDC still recommends that you leave camps alone, right. And they're continuing to pick up these sweeps. And so it's a policy of the county. It's a policy of the city. They have ordinances that they use to enact them, and they could choose a different policy. These guys are out there on orders.
Yeah, it didn't these sweeps start to go down as well just before COVID, right? December or so, because that's when the Supreme Court let the ruling of Boise stand. Boise being, when you say that in like the homeless advocacy world, that's Martin versus Boise. And this is basically a ruling that said if a region doesn't have enough shelter beds or housing for folks who are experiencing homelessness, it is in fact against the Constitution to roust them, to make them move, because it is cruel and unusual punishment. So if you're going to do something like this, like what the Rangers are doing or what Sac PD does to folks legally, according to the Supreme Court, you have to have enough shelter beds or housing in the region to provide them to be able to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, except that it's
Go ahead, Shannon, please.
Sacramento has never really, abided by that.
Right. And in fact, if when it went to the Supreme Court, our city attorney spent her time and energy, and I think you guys covered this, trying to get the Supreme Court to hear the case, to be able to give them more powers to remove people, to clarify when they could and couldn't remove people. And they also, the county, both of them have kind of said out loud, how can we get around this? Like, what can we do to get around this? And even these new pushes towards sanctioned encampments is an effort to get around it. I mean, Bruce Wagstaff from the county said aloud, this is going to be our way to offer people something under Boise. And we know this is not shelter, right? I mean, encampments are still outside. It's still hot when it's hot. It's still cold when it's cold. You're still sleeping on the ground. This is not a shelter. They don't have showers. They don't have laundry. This is not a shelter, right? These are encampments. They're city-run encampments. They're not even safe grounds, no matter what they call them. And so we know that they're going to be increasing the introduction of these to use them as a tool to continue to move people along. And so, like Shannon mentioned, they've never really done it because they've always tried to figure out ways to get around it. And part of what they do is they give special referral access to all of the services, basically. And Shannon can attest to this, at least any ones they have control over, the city or the county, give special access to police of all variety for referral. And that's problematic because it creates like a coercive service delivery model. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'd be happy to hear like more of what Shannon thinks of that take, but they create a situation where you take this, or I mean, it's cops that show up, you know what I mean? Right. And we can get into the details of what happened with the Rangers, but it's cops that show up.
Right.
And I mean, the other part of that beyond the coercive service delivery model is that and we've said this before on the show, is that you have this situation where there are people who are living in constant trauma, right? That it's constant trauma because they're outside, because they don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to, they don't know where their next meal is going to come from or where their food is going to come from, or their sense of security is not there because they don't, at any given moment, their things can be taken from them by the exact people who are charged with supporting them with, multiple services. Should those law enforcement officials decide that they want to in that moment? Because the other thing that we know, for anyone who has ever done outreach on the street, is that you'll see law enforcement come out to these roustings or these sweeps, and they don't always offer the same services to everybody that they're sweeping. It is, it's dependent on what officer shows up or who's there or who actually knows. Yeah, and who actually knows the services that are available, so that you can say like, hey, did you offer them a motel voucher? We know you have access to a motel voucher, so that you then introduce that accountability to them. But you can't. It brings up just more and more and more of these problems that we have when we specifically with local government here in Sacramento being charged with trying to, or deciding that they're just going to fix it, they're going to figure it all out, is that they don't understand that what they're doing is they're sending the people who caused the trauma out to try and mitigate the trauma, right? Or to alleviate the stress, right, or to reduce the harm. And it's like, you can't fucking do that. These uniformed folks are
these people who've abused you and terrorized you.
You're
supposed to trust them now. You're
guns. They come with guns.
They're wearing guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they drive up in, you know, it's like, it's not ever a situation. And like, take a survey of the people who have worked in or volunteered in this space and ask when you have ever seen one cop car show up to a sweep. You see county cars, cop cars, cop SUVs that are outfitted with, you know, big ass guns. And then you see the dump truck, and then you see the claw, which is the, you know, like the bulldozer situation.
Right.
Like
the bobcat.
these sweeps and camps being rousted are never human centered. It is all about the destruction of people's property,
Right.
which, according to our mayor, is actually the mayor of Sacramento, Terrell Steinberg.
Right.
It's actually criminal.
Well, yeah, let's
taking
Niki,
us
do you
off
want
the rails a little.
Yeah, do you want to say something real quick?
No, I mean, I was just going to give like specific example of what Shannon said, but if you
do, please.
Okay. So like,
because I think we've been talking a little 5,000 foot, and I want to bring this
bring it in. So absolutely. I mean, we can talk about it. This happened both with the camp, the camp at the island and the camp out in Rio Linda, that they received notices to vacate without any service provision. So on the notice to vacate, gosh, I should show you guys a picture. I wish I had one. I'd share screen, but they list like some services that you could call, some shelters. Some people did, some of the numbers go nowhere. All of the shelters are full, as anyone who works in the industry knows, except for the police's special access, right? But generally, if you're just a person trying to call to get yourself some services, there's not an access. Even waiting on hold with 211 for, you know, half hour to an hour, your phone's going to die, so on and so forth, right? And you're still not going to get access to those services. So the county in both of those situations got caught, right? People in those camps reached out to the larger community of people who care about this, and people showed up. And in those situations, they've had to dial back. And with the case of the island, people also reached out to the city because they thought like, oh, this is kind of in the city, right? Like where, you know, shouldn't Bridget Dean be handling this? So she did get involved in that one. Bridget Dean is the director of the Department of Community Response with the city of Sacramento. Okay. And then DHA got involved at the other encampment.
And once that's again, another acronym alert, DHA.
Department of Human Assistance. Also, okay. That one's with the county, right? And so they're taking over a lot of homeless services. And this is what's scary, right? Because they're not being led by service. Like Shannon said, it's not human-centered, it's not trauma-informed. It's led by this coercive service delivery model of police decide when service providers come out, police decide who gets the services based on who they want to sweep, based on who's getting complaints, who needs to be moved. And, you know,
that's precisely it. Yeah.
Right. And so they came out after.
They're handing this to the
after
coercive arm of the law. Right. And, whereas we should have people doing real actual outreach, building rapport, building relationships with folks who are out there experiencing probably among the worst times of their lives, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So what happened at Ground Zero over at Rio Linda?
Well, they got a notice on.
And what kind of camp is this? How many people?
Okay, great. I mean, it's an encampment. Before, people had already left before I ever showed up, because people who could move easily did move easily at the threat of the destruction of all their property, right? And to be clear, people just moved right around in the same area, right? It's not solving the problems they're talking about. It's not getting people housing. It's not preventing the risk of fire, nothing. They're not giving people fire extinguishers. They're not doing education. They're not talking about it. They're just taking people's things. And actually, in the case of Rio Linda, just destroying people's things. So they just brought in the Bobcat 3 different days, started the destruction of property day 1, halfway through. Some of us were there. They were like, oh, we're going to stop for the day. You guys have more time. And they'll try to say that they only came out that day for trash, but ask anybody who lives in that camp. And they were out that day, they all believed that they were going to have all of their belongings bulldozed that day. That was the impression they'd already been given. The day was the day of their notice. And so it's about, I would say probably about 15 folks by the time I got there. And quite a few like really well-built homes, like very well-established locking gates.
I know
and
there was
doors.
a shed with a woman who could lock a door.
Right,
Yeah.
she could lock her gate and her door.
Mhm.
And then there was another woman who could lock her door, and then there was another couple that had just like a really brilliant setup of a lot of different places and spaces for different, parts of it. The way we would have a living room and a dining room and a bathroom and that, so on and so forth. And they grew things, and they had chicken coops, and it was a beautiful camp. There's a succulent garden that got bulldozed.
Cool.
It was just like, it was awful. Right. And
Shannon,
so it was over the course of 3 days.
Shannon, can you quickly like talk about like why it's important for a single woman out there like to be able to have a door that locks?
Yeah, I mean,
and I say this, knowing that you are the program director of Mary House, which is a daytime drop-in shelter for women and children experiencing homelessness.
I mean, the short of it is just that violence against women experiencing homelessness is something that is happening as we're speaking. There are women who are being held against their will. There are women who are being assaulted physically, sexually. There are also women who are having, it's like, I mean, I hear stories that are basically like human trafficking in the world of, folks experiencing homelessness. So if a woman is able to be in a space where a door locks and she understands that she is safe and secure, that means that a little bit of that like executive function can return to her, right? And it means that she can rest. It means that she is better able the next day to, do the things that she wants to do, the things that she needs to do, so that she is, just by having the lock, all of a sudden you're reducing the cycle of harm and violence, right? Because because that cycle of trauma is stopping for a moment, right? Because you realize that there is, okay, for the next 6 or 8 hours while I'm sleeping, I am not going to experience violence, harm, etc.
And these are folks who pleaded repeatedly to the county, hey, we can't just up and move. This isn't that simple for someone like us. And, as you just described, this is one of the most vulnerable populations within the unhoused community, and crickets from the county, right? So Niki, please, sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, please. I mean, thank you for bringing up that point and having Shannon share that, and just like so powerful and true, and really highlights, some of the things coming out of these camps, like what folks are saying specifically, right? It's that after the whole encampment was bulldozed, after her hut was bulldozed and their locking door and all that, she said they didn't just take my home, they took my sense of security. So exactly what you're saying, Shannon. And that she reached out to us, to a community group, not one that I am affiliated with, but we all roll together, and said that very thing, that she was afraid of what would happen when she didn't have a lock, and that it made her fearful about the types of things that had happened before she had a lock. And so they're directly causing harm, they're directly causing danger, and their services are, few and far to be seen. On the day of the actual bulldozing, shout out to the Rio Linda Feral Cat Society. Sarah, she was out there. That was a service provider working hard to get them to slow down, to save the kittens, to not bulldoze so fast so that we could get the kittens. Unfortunately, in another kind of hut area where they didn't know there was a newborn group of kittens, that group did get bulldozed. One survived with one lost leg. Thankfully Sarah came out and picked it up. But so we saved.
This is our
3 kittens
county
that day. Right.
Bulldozing homes.
Yeah.
And literally just killing kittens.
Kittens. It's like the epitome of evil, right? And it's the banality too, because it's like parks maintenance department is out there with the rangers. It's like they're like, I just hold a rake. They say that. They say, I'm just the guy with the rake. Yeah, I do what these guys tell me to do, right?
I'm just doing my job.
Exactly. And then the guys with the rake become the guys with the bulldozer, and then the guys with the guns who are just telling them what to do say, well, I'm just doing my job and my boss told me this, right? And so there's a chief park ranger, Leonard Ormond, I believe is his name. And he should be brought to task. He should be asked, what is going on with your department? Why are they whiling? And they're not just whiling, they're, I don't know if we're ready for this, but to go to the island, I mean, the last 2 days after they've been threatened with sweeps for over a month, the last 2 days they've come in without warning and taken just cooking supplies. So stoves, gas. Yeah, go ahead.
So you were saying for the past few weeks, they've been getting sort of little warnings, little heads up that folks are that the county is gonna come in.
Well, they got one, and then they got a promise that they wouldn't.
Okay, so when was the warning?
So the warning was on the 3rd
of July.
Was it July or June? How long has this been going on? I think it's June, actually.
This has been going on with the island for a really long time, because this was like the stuff with the island actually started in the springtime, right? And then they were able to advocates reached out and were able to get the county to back off, and so they do, right? They back off for a little bit, but they're never going to let the folks who are living out there forget that they know they're there, right? So they consistently will come out and patrol, I guess, or whatever. And then Niki, they come out and they give the actual warning that's yo, we're coming out to you actually have to move under or with the conversation around but we're gonna get you housing, which to back that up, I think, just to sort of paint the landscape before Niki tells us about what happened with the island, is that this has been going on for some time, that what happens is our local government says, we will help you get off the street and get you into housing, and then everything slows down or it grinds to a halt even. And why is that? It's because there isn't there is not enough affordable housing. But the other part of this is that service providers are just completely worn thin, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a result of COVID, as a result of the rise of people, just more and more people being in need. So trying to make sure to trying to get out there and help everybody is increasingly difficult during this time. And services being cut back. The other part is, Niki had mentioned previously, Department of Human Assistance, DHA, who carries, I guess, the contracts or the charge to lead the effort around Project Room Key and Project Home Key and just homeless services in general. That is not a large team of people that is charged with going out and making sure that all of these services are provided for folks experiencing homelessness. And these are not folks experiencing homelessness who are in the prime of their youth, right? These are folks who have caregivers who are older adults and aging and sick. And Niki can talk more about that.
Oh, keep going. Sorry.
And just this, so the people who are charged with the effort to actually like work toward an end goal here, that to work toward an end goal, period, are not they just don't have all the tools in their tool belt. They don't have all the resources in their tool belt. And even further, these are folks who are not centered in relationship with folks experiencing homelessness, those particular folks experiencing homelessness, anyone. So they can't just go out there and they don't understand the gravity of what's happening out there. So when you say like, here's housing, we'll get you housing, you have to understand these are people who have made this space their home for months and years. And so it's not overnight. It is not overnight that they're going to get they're going to trust you, that they're going to be able to pack up all of their possessions and get moving, right? Like vulnerable people living in constant trauma. It just doesn't work like that.
Well, this camp's interesting too, because, the leader has actually said that there are a number of people who have said, like, listen, you have housing for us, we will take it. And ball was in your court, right? Ball's in your court, city, county. Silence, radio silence for months after the fact, which is the same thing that you see all over the place with our unhoused community, where it's like someone offers you something, housing or something like that. And, if you happen to be somebody who still trusts it a little, you tentatively say yes, and then they don't deliver for you ever.
The other part of that is the approach to this, which is completely normative, right? Like, I have housing for you. I will call you when it's ready. You call me back, fill out this paperwork, get this paperwork back to me, and we'll make sure you'll send me copies of your ID and we'll get you on the master lease and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you realize that you are talking to folks who have been so removed from a normative sense of community, from a normative operational system. They've been marginalized so far that, like, phones, like, not everybody has a phone. There's probably 1 or 2, maybe 5 phones that somehow have to be charged. And then you want them to like fill out paperwork and send copies of IDs and do all that. Like, you have to, this is like what intensive case management is on the ground. You send people out day in and day out to build relationship, to build trust, to work on earning the space to have access to people's personal information so that you can earn their trust for housing.
Yeah.
Say that.
You don't demand that they go into housing. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right. They demand it, and they call a 7-day motel voucher housing.
Yeah.
In like a trash hotel, right?
Right. In a trash. Yeah, actually. So at ground zero,
then what do you do with your belongings for that week? And then when you're back out on the street, right? It's
not worth it. It's not even, the solutions, quote, are so short-sighted that they're not even worth people taking them. And not only that, but then they're carceral in nature, right? Room key, no visitors, curfews, no, very limited coming and going. People feel so policed in city and county programs that it's not even worth it. And for a lot of people, it has to be, because this is survival, and everyone is, and that's part of it, is that, right, everybody is entitled to make the choice about that. And that's what's so obviously fucked about the mayor's obligation to accept, which I won't even call a right to housing. It's like a carrot dangle of shelter, and definitely the punishment for not. But that's what the folks, when the sheriff's walking away right before the final moment that they're about to bulldoze the camp of this one woman, they say at ground zero, they say, okay, well, you got that email from DHA, right? So we got you housing. There should be a motel voucher in your email. So we got you housing.
Email.
Fuck your fucking email.
Yes.
Number one, and you already brought up the phones, but like, the worker can't, who's gonna take them there? Who's gonna check them in? Who's got the ID? Who's like, everybody knows this. And then when they called the motel, to your point of shitty motels, Kempa, it was like they couldn't actually check anyone in that night because the rooms didn't have running water.
And this is a thing that happens. I think this is a really important point about the motels, because the excuse that we hear is that the county is unable to build contracts with motel owners because there's a stigma around housing people experiencing homelessness in motels, right? Like they're like, we don't want unhoused people to patronize our business because, you know, for the reasons that I'm not even going to give it airtime because it's all a bunch of fucking bullshit.
Take them.
So that is a thing, but it's like, so what you're saying to me, Sacramento County, is that you are unable to come up with a solution to trash hotel owners who refuse to maintain motels that humans are sleeping in. And also you can't find any alternative. There is no alternative in the hotels that have gone out of business, in the spaces that are vacant. There is nowhere that you could put the money that our county has access to like master lease a hotel where the county holds the lease, and then people folks then are able to like live in those spaces, so they don't have to, like, if they have an eviction on their record, they don't have to run through like an individual landlord. So you're telling me that Sacramento County is incapable of finding different housing or motel hotel solutions. Like
they don't even want to. They voted down
they don't,
home key before COVID, and they continue to paint it like a bad project. I mean, ask Emily Halcon about it. She's not interested in home key.
Right. Emily Halcon is now, she used to run sort of the homeless initiative for the city. She has now fallen upwards and is running that for the county.
And at $177,000 a year, she is absolutely willing to send the cops out. And, you know,
we've seen those emails, right, where she basically sends out cops to do really the opposite of what her office should be advocating for.
100%.
Can we talk to me a little more about what happened the last couple days over at the island?
Absolutely.
Right? So the leader at the island is this amazing woman named Twana. It is a long time camp. It's you know, I was just there today. It's a really like well kept space, and there are a lot of a lot of older folks there, and Twana and others, their whole initiative, their whole MO is to just take care of these folks that Sac County refuses to help and refuses to house. So let's just take it from there, Niki.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the island has been a beautiful community for a long time. Sometimes they have to shuffle around a little bit because of flooding, but they've mostly stayed together and you know, with ins and outs for quite a long time. Years and years. And the last few days, you know, Shannon explained earlier that they've been, you know, looking at how can they move everybody, and they're looking at that for the whole parkway, right? I want to highlight that, you know, this is not, these are the camps that are getting attention, but this happened at Pollock. This happened at Pollock weeks ago. It's happening through Northgate. It's happening across the parkway because it's their intention and it's their MO.
Which shows us the importance of Twana, to alert the community when they're being terrorized by the Rangers.
Absolutely. And what that speaks to is the importance of building relationships. And you heard it when we were out there today, one of the other women, and I would go so far as to say there are many leaders in that camp, right? You heard the way other folks are talking about it. We're so blessed that Twana is connected to the outside community. And we should have more of that, right? It shows us that we should have more of that, because it makes a difference when we invest our time in these relationships and we build, you know, these this mutual aid and support through, because it truly is mutual aid, right? It's not just, this is absolutely not charity work. This is like solidarity work. We're in it together. We learn from people in their fight every day how to do this fight. And so from Tawana, absolutely such a blessing. And yeah, you know, raised the alarm when they first put out the notice, raised the alarm yesterday when they came in to walk directly to her camp. And she didn't just raise the alarm on this. She's been attending D4, District 4 meetings. She's been attending other advocacy meetings. So she's an involved person, right?
So
and
it seemed to a number of folks like she was being personally targeted. The
right,
Rangers came directly in Wednesday and went directly to Tawana's camp and started taking her things. They started claiming they were going to tase her dog. They were claiming that her dog was aggressive, which she posted on Twitter
That
video
dog
of her
is-
dog.
check it out. We cuddled her dog today. We cuddled her dog so tough today. She ran, you know, and that's the thing about energy, right? Like,
Yeah. And so like all of these Rangers, they know that they're being recorded now, right? They've got to run with their cameras on. So they say all these words that they know will help protect their asses. So they're like, oh, your dog was aggressive. So that if and when they do shoot it, then, you know, that covers them. They say, you know, oh, when I ended up in a little argument with one today, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, well, they gave this all up, you know, voluntarily. They gave us this stuff voluntarily. They will keep reciting these lies to you, to anybody there. And like everyone sees directly through it, but they're doing it just so this thing that's being recorded, you know, once it does make the public sphere, if it does, then they're like, that's my defense, you know. Sorry, I took us off a little bit.
no, I mean, that's exactly right. And it leads into like what was happening today when we showed up, right? And yesterday when the Rangers showed up, walked directly to Tawana's camp. And what they said was, do you have cooking supplies? And so they came in, and what they've been doing today and yesterday is taking everybody's gas stoves, their barbecues, their propane tanks, just taking it all and threatening to come back and take their generators, which of course is people's everything. It's how you
It's their livelihood. This is their lives.
It's absolutely how you stay alive. It's their survival for sure. And but they're taking all the stuff to cook with, right? How fascist, literally, to come in to people and take away how it is that they feed themselves,
right?
Which, by the way, of course, is the safer way to cook out there. And people have to cook, people have to eat. It's a, you know, it's like going to, people have to.
Yeah, they're trying to starve these folks.
Right.
Well, and I think so. What they say, their line is, everything is, it's hot, it's dry, fire season, right? This is a risk. These encampments are risks. They're fire hazards. So we have to, like, you know, we got to move them along, whatever. And so I suspect what would happen is if you were like, you know, you're starving people by taking all of their cooking equipment, they would be like, but that shit can start a fire. And it's like, but why are we in this space of, instead of equipping people with tools, right? We start with punitive action. So why not go out there and be like, okay, like, we got to do this, that, and the other thing to make this more fire safe.
Which they have been doing. Marshall's been out there.
And
the fire department has been,
to cut you off.
No, it's
the fire department's been cool as hell with them. And the fire department's like, yeah, you're doing good. And no, we didn't reach out to the county. I don't know what the county's talking about, claiming that we said to come take this stuff.
I mean, and
the Rangers are liars. I'm sorry, keep going.
It's also folks who have been living outside for as long as these folks have been living outside know how not to start a fucking fire. And yes, 100% accidents happen, but these are folks who are taking so much care. They're stewarding that like parcel of land in that space in a way that like is really like care, cultivating care and community, because actual lives depend on it, right? Like, because
Right.
that is their actual home right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they are
have the
treating it as such.
right.
They
They
have
have
the
the
utmost
most
respect
interest.
for it, right? And it's in their best interest to treat it well. Like, I just don't. It's. I don't know. At what point are we going to see the end of? And the answer is probably never. But the end of this thing that is like, we need to get people experiencing homelessness off the street. And then we understand, we look at the landscape of like where everything is at in terms of housing, services, etc. And there's not enough of any of it. And the answer is still to fuck with people's very existence. You go out and you just wreck everything and everyone, like actual humans.
Yeah. Well, let's finish
It's
the
torture.
plot. It is. Let's finish the plot line up until, you know, our moment of recording. So on Wednesday, July 21st, they came out. They immediately targeted Twana and her camp. They started just taking people's cooking supplies, and really providing them no options, right? You have...
Right.
What are you going to eat? How are you going to eat now? As we go into this weekend of triple digit weather, how are you going to get through it? And they don't care.
Yeah.
And so they do that to her and a number of others in the camp. She thankfully is a very resourceful person, puts out a call for help, and some folks do respond. Yes, on Wednesday. So a lot of folks... And like, that's the good thing about having an infrastructure of mutual aid that Sacramento has started to build the last year and a half. Folks were ready. And so they went and they made some food. They went out, gave them some food, you know, and like got to know them. Right. And like, you know, what else do you need? And then so next day, Thursday, the 22nd, we've already got this in our minds, right, of what happens on the 21st. So Twana puts out another call for help on Twitter. The park rangers are back. They're terrorizing folks. They're taking all of their cooking things. Again, they're just sweeping through the camp day to day until no one in that camp will have any means to be able to prepare themselves a meal, basically, which increases a fire hazard, as you two were saying.
100%. I mean, this is the safer option. What they're pushing them towards is having fires.
Right.
And that's substantially less safe, even though, as you said, they would be very, you know, they are experts and would be careful, but they were making a choice. They spent money to not have to do that, to be able to cook more safely. And this is the thing, these policies and the implementation of these policies, the enactment destroys people's ability to live. You know, Shannon, you said it's it wrecks everything. It wrecks people. And it's, the ranger said straight up, you probably heard him, but he was like, we're not taking people's cooking things, span to truck full of cooking things.
Right.
Like, what are you even
cooking,
saying?
yeah.
What are,
and we have pictures,
think,
like you have the receipts. Yeah. So Niki, you texted Shannon and myself and said, hey, they're back at it again today. We record on Thursdays, so on the 22nd. And so I went down there. I just quick hop down there with Chelsea to try and go see, like, just to, I knew we were going to be doing this episode today. I wanted to be able to see what was going on. And I mean, we could have done this episode without having to go down there today, but it's because it's a tale as old as time. They're liars. The Rangers are lying. And we saw them lie bold-faced to us. I was not in a good mood going down there. And then when I saw folks crying, wondering how I'm going to eat tonight, how I'm going to eat this weekend, I got a little angrier. And I ended up kind of in the face of one of the rangers, calling him a monster. And, you know, his whole
Randy
thing was
Bickle,
like,
he's the supervisor. It's good.
Randy
Tell him
Bickle,
he's
yes.
not the boss, but he's the supervisor on these jobs.
I'm gonna write your
And it
name
goes
down, Randy.
Commander
We're gonna,
Spencer, and then it goes Leonard Ormond.
yeah.
I think that's what they've communicated as their hierarchy. I try to avoid hierarchies, but they seem to be very
if you give me their names and
Mhm.
even if you have badge numbers, I
yeah,
can
I
do
do.
some public records requests on them, and that
Oh,
could
great.
be, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
And I, you know, again, like, we're not the story here, but it was just infuriating. And I think when you showed up, you were like, well, Dave's not here in the capacity of a journalist.
Well, I heard him say, "Stop taking people's shit," and I was like, that sounds active to me.
I'm asking questions, but they're not. But the questions I'm asking in this capacity are, how do you sleep at night? You know?
Right. It was journalistic integrity. I'll tell you that. It was beautiful.
I felt, bad afterwards. Not for Randy, but just generally, like, you know.
You know, it's a good point. And just to bring it up really quick, it's, you know, because a lot of people are engaged in mutual aid, they are seeing sweeps more and more. And it's an important reminder that, like, these people that we're out there with, who are facing this kind of destruction of their lives and harassment every day, have to deal with these same rangers, these same cops, these same sheriffs every day. And so it is actually important to kind of keep in mind how we are, how we interact, to be checking in with people there with what they're comfortable with. But you heard the woman today, she was like, no, it's great because they think we don't have a voice. And so it's great. You guys are using your voice. It's great. And she was like, they don't like to see this. You know, she explained it to us all in all this detail, but like about like normies, right? But just like people, how you know, house people up there, how they live up there and how we live down here, and how they don't. This
is our bubble, right?
This is our bubble.
It's a different universe with different norms. Yeah.
Right. And she said that they don't like to see it when we mix together.
When we work together.
When we work together. And she's so right. And there's so much power there. There's so much power in that like cross-class organizing and cross-class support. And so I just encourage everybody to really be thinking about it bigger than mutual aid, right? This is an organizing effort. This is a human rights issue. This is about solidarity. This is the front line of the class war. This is a racial justice issue. This is a disability justice issue. There's no getting around the disproportionate number of Black, Native, Indigenous, Brown people, no getting over the disproportionate number of disabled people. It's just absurd the way we have structurally left these people out to dry and are now punishing them for it.
Yeah. Well, one recourse, because I always like to point people in a direction. I don't want folks to get all riled up or feel sad at the end of an episode. One piece of recourse that we are focusing on is Tawana has started a GoFundMe. It is to support the folks in her camp from the theft that Sac County has committed against them, from the terror that Sac County continues to commit against them. So we'll provide a link to that GoFundMe if you want to support this camp. I think there are other efforts to get involved in. One of them in particular, it's just generally, I think we've seen the Sac Homeless Union, Sac Soup. They've been a great entryway, especially a great entryway for like kind of middle class folks who aren't used to like radical circles or whatever, to just be like, hey, here, come help us do this like very simple human thing. And then people really start to see what's going on and really start to see how the city, the county, the state are treating folks that could be any of us. So I just want to give a shout out to those groups and to let folks know Crystal Sanchez of both of those groups. She is a force to be reckoned with. I know that she has said that there is going to be a meeting, an orientation for new folks for the Sac Homeless Union and Sac Soup. They'll give you tips on safety and engagement training. This will be on July 24th. That's a Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm not sure if this was like a public Zoom link or whatever, but once I do have details on that, I will provide that to listeners and viewers as well. What are some other things to, Niki, Shannon, you two you're in it every day. And like, I have so much respect for you too. But what right now do you think folks could be doing to help this situation? Do you yell at Phil Cerna? Like, not yell, but like, send a strongly worded email? What do you do?
I mean, I always think that we should be yelling. I think that we, as people who find ourselves in a space of privilege because we are housed, we should be using that that part of us for the people who do not have that same privilege. And yelling is part of that. I think the other part of that right now, especially because we find ourselves in such sort of a heated space around issues of homelessness, which is common, in Sacramento. It's always, homelessness is sort of always there, right? Like,
right.
Sort of hovering above. But right now, especially, we're hearing and seeing and anticipating things. So if you find yourself in a space where there are folks who tend to be on the wrong side of things, and you find yourself on the human-centered side of things, using the space that you occupy to speak truth to people, even in your circles, right? Like, you can start organizing within your just like circles of influence, bringing in those bits and pieces of conversations that you hear, whether they be on this show or with other like-minded people. That work, I think, is just as important as sending a letter to a local elected. And then I think the other thing is just, especially as we continue on with the heat of the summer, making sure that when you're going places, that you're carrying cold water with you. And before you leave your house, make a few peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and take those with you. If you have a group of people who are sitting around and enjoying a backyard like rosé moment, maybe you can all like make some sandwiches together and have someone drop them off to an encampment the next day. So I think really like cool. This is really a time to sort of like, we can all enjoy each other in a different way right now, in a way that we haven't been able to over the last year. And I think over the last year, what we learned was the importance of community, and we learned that because we missed it, right? And so people experiencing homelessness are part of our community, whether or not we know them personally. So how can we take care of our community? And that those pieces of advocacy are so important, but those pieces of like solidarity in community and like reaching out and meeting the actual needs of people day to day, if you can find ways to do that, I think especially right now in the middle of state sanctioned trauma and violence, you could really, really help to just bring some moments of like pause and rest where people's trauma response can maybe like for just like a minute turn down and give them a mild piece of respite.
Niki?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I love that so much and agree. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think being connected to people, being kind to people, making eye contact and saying hello to people, starting a conversation with people, is hugely important. Um, Even if you're rebuffed once or twice, you know, it's not about uh, a person, it's about that bubble and having to rebuild the bridges that a very strict caste system that we have in America has like created these gaps, and we have to bridge those gaps. And so definitely through that idea of like bringing things people need, like Shannon was talking about, I mean, that's just so hugely important. And the reality that it's more than a letter, right? Advocacy and we've learned that it has to be more than a letter. You shouted out the Homeless Union, shout out to them. One of their original founders from back in the 80s or 90s said, you don't get anything you're not organized to take. Power is not going to give us housing for these people. It is not going to stop the terror. We have to build the networks to support one another and feed one another. And, you know, I'm part of this really dope group, shout out Youth Council. It's a group of youth experiencing homelessness, formerly experiencing homelessness, that meets every week, plans, talks about their lives, you know, plans advocacy, stuff like that. But, you know, they were dreaming big about like, why can't we run our own program? You know, they're in these programs where they're always afraid of getting kicked out, or the rules don't make any sense, or this or that. And they're like, why can't we run our own program? And so, you know, the solutions are in the people. And that's why we have to make room for them at the conversation. That means we have to adjust our own bias. It means we have to make new kinds of room in conversations. It means our meetings can't all be so agendized. Thank you, Dave, earlier for calling me out about acronyms, you know, like really explaining what we're talking about and building a shared language about what's going on, and getting to a place where we have enough power to, you know, support one another and wield power over what the state currently holds as its power. So both displacing their power, taking it, changing it, things like electing folks, and also things like completely making their power irrelevant. Through care and community and building what we need together, which I know is like dreamy, but it has very tangible steps on the ground where, you know, scale up some of the things Shannon was just talking about. And
I love the ground the two of you covered there, because there is so much to do. And, you know, I guess when I think of the greater left, you know, socialists and beyond, it's like so many different people have so many different tactics, and they're effective in different ways, I believe. And I think it's so important that we do a little bit less of you shouldn't do this and a little bit more of here's what's working for me. All right. And sharing notes with each other. And again, I mean, like, you know, there are camps that have been just totally rousted that we probably haven't heard about, right? And we need to build that community network. We need to build that out. But the Rangers, knowing that we are starting to build that network out, will affect their behavior. And we can affect the behavior of our board of supervisors, of our city council members, of even the bureaucrats. They are not immune to us. You're not immune to us. You don't get to hide. So no, we will continue to put pressure on them too.
They didn't return my emails. I'll say that right now. I emailed early about Rio Linda. I've emailed about, and when they do, it's like, oh yeah, we're on it. And that's
Thank
it.
you for your
And then,
email.
yeah, totally.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's the episode. Anyone else have anything to add?
Just thank y'all for having me on.
I mean, thank you, Niki.
Thank you.
You know how I feel about you. It was like a joy to see you today, even though like you walked up on me like screaming at someone. This is the patrons only, so this is for the real ones today. But I wanted to. It's probably cool if I share Twana's Twitter because it's a great Twitter. Is it okay if I do that? You think?
Yeah, I think she would welcome more followers. Yeah, it's public.
Okay, so
yeah, definitely.
Her Twitter is at TwanaJames6. That's at TWANAJAMES, the number 6. And she has some amazing stuff, a lot of stuff showing just what the Rangers are doing. A lot of great stuff with her dog today, showing just how violent this dog is. And I think folks like her are really important in the fight. And I'm just so thankful for people like her. Of course, I'm thankful for people like you two. I say it all the time when I talk to you two. But I guess that's it.
That's it. Maybe we'll see some of you listening to this show on Saturday, 7 to 10, patron hang. There's still a couple spots. So if you're listening to this on Friday, you still got time.
You have a day.
If I'll get buzzed and talk about homelessness with you.
Mm-hmm. I'll be in a much better mood than Thursday.
I'm going to try to crash somehow.
You're definitely crashing. Yeah.
I'll be the one chain smoking in the corner, yelling about, state-sanctioned violence and fuck the police.
Also, we are going to have a rapid COVID testing station on the way in. Our dear good friend, Dr. Teta, and my dear friend, Bobby Dalton Roy, will be putting this together. And I'm just so excited for that. So that's just another level of safety. This is a backyard party. So we look forward to seeing you all.
Yes.
All right. Shall we call it?
That's the show.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. Stop recording.